Evening, welcome back to Sci-Fi Chronicles. Nice to see you all. So tonight I'm talking to you about Star Trek Strange New Worlds episode 4.5 Vulcans. Okay, so let's get into what happens in the episode.
The Vulcan High Command has reached out to us about a situation on the planet of Tezar.
The Vulcans, prior to obviously being part of the Federation, prior to the Prime Directive,
The Vulcans made contact with the Tezarians before the founding of the Federation.
They effectively met and had first contact with the Tezarians. And at the time, the Tezarians, to stop them destroying their world, the Vulcans gave them a nuclear reactor that effectively powered the planet. Now, what's happening is the fact that that nuclear reactor is about to go critical. So they need to get there and repair it. But the trouble that they've got is the fact that the Vulcans are not going to get there in time. So the Enterprise crew, being the closest Federation starship within distance to the Tezarians, are asked to go in there. But the catch is the fact that apparently they all have to look like Vulcans, but not just look like Vulcans. They have to actually be Vulcans because they're going to be scanned.
Any superficial disguise would be instantly detected.
So you're saying...
What happens is they come up with the idea that they are going to have a treatment in sick bay, and all of the crew members that are on the mission will become Vulcans. They become Vulcans. They go down to the planet. They fix the nuclear reactor in record time. They come back to the ship. They then have a treatment to reverse the process, which doesn't work. So therefore, they have to work on trying to find a solution and try and find a treatment to reverse them throughout the episode, because the crew members are now stuck as Vulcans for the rest of the episode. Okay, so that's the plot in a nutshell. So let's get into, first of all, the positive that I liked about the episode. Okay, so the positive, again, beautiful shot of the Enterprise around the planet. Brilliant. Hats off to the effects team on this one, yet again, and also the production team. The sets still look immaculate. They really do. It's just a shame it's not being used on a show that's got better writers. Spock in this episode is still treated like an idiot. You get Lan that is sat at a table with number one, and Spock asks to sit down, and Lan basically tells him to get stuffed.
Of course, you can't sit.
So Lan carries on her conversation, and then you have this shot of almost a pitiful looking Spock sorting his napkin out and sitting all by himself. You know, it really is pathetic. And again, with this show, I don't know who they've done dirty to the most, whether it's Spock or whether it's Kirk, you know, because they are just trying to diminish those characters at this point. I think it is terrible. The scene with the crew, with the crew having the treatment in sick bay is a very cringy moment, because they're suddenly on the floor. You've got the actor who plays Lan, who is doing this weird thing where she's trying to crawl across the floor with the rest of them. It's really wooden acting, and it is just really terrible stuff. You then get another cringier scene straight after this, where you have the crew members who are now Vulcans walking down the corridor in their Vulcan outfits. And you've got like a rock and metal music playing as they're walking down the corridor, almost as if to suggest that they're badasses. The other thing I don't understand about this corridor scene is, I understand that you would take weapons down to protect yourselves because you don't know in every scenario what you're going into, but they're going to fix a nuclear reactor. Why in the hell is Captain Pike carrying a giant, Vulcan Lurper with him? I mean, it's absolute nonsense. You just wouldn't do that. It's ridiculous. So that happens. You then have, I have to say, I've praised Anson Mount because I think he's the best thing in Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I really do. I think he's a good actor. but again, he's just not given anything decent to work with. So if someone was giving him direction, I don't think they were telling him to look at previous episodes involving Vulcans. I think they were telling him to go and watch Coneheads, because he's playing it like it's Coneheads, and it is really bizarre.
You are not a typical Vulcan.
You've then got Ahura, who is very quickly becoming the character I dislike a lot in this series, where she's now a Vulcan, and she's carrying on, trying to progress her romance with journalist Ortegas. And as they're sitting there, she effectively manipulates him to consent to effectively having a mind meld. So she mind melds with him to alter his personality so that he's more acceptable to her. Now, again, that's manipulation, and that's, altering somebody's mind so that they're acceptable to you. How on earth is that acceptable? Vulcan or human, it just doesn't, it's just not, is it? It's ridiculous. You then have the second to worst character on the show, and that is Lan, who every single time that Lan is on in the scene, it is wooden beyond belief. And she is playing this Vulcan that is clearly meant to be turning evil throughout the episode, and it is awful. Everything about every facial expression, the way the words are said, it is terrible. They clearly didn't have a director on set that day to actually guide her through the process. But again, I doubt it would make a difference with this actor. I know she's very, very beautiful in my opinion, but again, can't act for toffee. So you then have Lan doing an evil Vulcan bit throughout the episode with strange smiles and eyebrow raises. But I'm going to talk to you now about the character I just cannot stand in this entire run, and that is Pelia. Pelia, I can never understand what she's saying half the time. All she seems to do is she seems to either be there just purely to make a joke or to have some sort of sexual innuendo towards one of the male crew members. That's what happens the whole time, and it's just beyond annoying. And you then have Pelia's quarters, and I've talked about it before. I hate the fact that they've given these quarters, they've made them so big, they're like Hilton Hotel penthouses. When if you look at Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, you look at the Excelsior, which was a bigger ship to the Enterprise, and you've got Christian Slater stood in the doorway, and you've got Captain Sulu lying on his bed in his tiny quarters. Again, it makes no sense. Whereas you go to Pelia's, she's got a full sofa bed, like sofa settee set up in the quarters. She's got a 4-poster timber bed. She's got a 1980s British phone box in the background, and it's just ridiculous. When I talk about intelligent science fiction, this isn't it. None of it in this show is believable to me whatsoever. It's just nonsense. And I will say, the comedy that they've put into this episode, I'm still struggling to figure out who this is meant to be directed towards. Is there a particular audience for this? Because, I know I'm in my 40s, but I didn't find it at all funny. I'm trying to figure out who would find it funny. It's just bizarre comedy, that just doesn't hit at any moment for me, really. And then you've got Patton Oswalt turns up, to play Vulcan Doug, and you get this stupid scene.
Your ability to fully participate in a lie the way you did, it is extraordinary.
Vulcan Doug, Spock and Number One. And Number One used to be in a relationship with him, and she's pretending to be in a relationship and married to Spock because she doesn't want to get entangled in it again, because it always ends badly, but she's obsessed with him. And again, you're watching this and you're just thinking to yourself, this is not Star Trek. I wish they just take Star Trek off of it. off of the titles, because this show is not Star Trek at all. If you've watched any of the previous eras of Star Trek, this is just a completely foreign entity. It is literally like a parasite that has dug itself into the carcass of Star Trek now. It's that bad. And I'm always trying to see the positives in things, but really I cannot see any positive in Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I've got 2 to go, and then I'm done, and I will have a big drink to celebrate. So, I would say to you as well, look, for me, this episode out of 10, I'm going to give it a 2 because it was that bad. Nothing worked for me in this episode whatsoever. But I will say that if you want to look at good episodes in Star Trek history where the crew members have had to be altered medically, then I would say you're better off trying out these episodes. And the ones that I would recommend to you are Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Apocalypse Rising. Great episode where the DS9 crew, they have to go to the Klingon homeworld because, not Klingon homeworld, but they have to go into Klingon territory because they believe that Gowron's a shapeshifter. So they're altered to look Klingon. Great episode. Check it out. You then have Star Trek Next Generation, Unification. So you have Data and Picard that are altered to be Romulans, or to look like Romulans. You've then got the original series, the Enterprise incident, where Kirk is made to look like a Romulan. And then you've got Star Trek Next Generation, Face of the Enemy, which again, where Troy is abducted. She wakes up to find herself on a Romulan ship, and she's been altered to look like a Romulan. And then you've got Star Trek Enterprise, The Communicator, where Trip and Archer are made to look like the inhabitants of a planet, and they're going down to find one of their missing communicators so that they don't cause cultural contamination. So I would check out those because that is good Star Trek for me. But again, let me know what you think. It's always great to hear from you, whether you agree with me, disagree with me, love the episode or hate the episode. It's always good to hear from you. Your comments are always welcome. Like last week, I had people disagreeing with me, but it was done in a very respectful way, and I can't wait to hear from you again. But until next time, look after yourselves. I'll see you soon.
Romulans.
Is
What does that mean?
Did you rig a booby trap?
Well,